Welcome, everybody, to the San Diego Media Pros Key Light Series podcast, where we have in-depth conversations and educational conversations with industry leaders. And my name is Eric Addison. I run 100 Acre Films here in San Diego, and I'm also the manager of the San Diego Premiere Pro User Group.
And I'm Lynn Arciero. I'm on the board for the San Diego Media Pros and own Rev Studios in La Jolla. And today we're talking about one of the most important skills that you can have in this industry, networking. We're joined by John Lambert of Gravity Labs, who is here to talk to us about his amazing career and how he's used his skills in networking, collaboration, and in community involvement to elevate to a point where he's been a cameraman on the iconic 1984 Ghostbusters, as well as honed his skills in visual effects. And like all of us, wears a lot of hats. He's done producing, directing, editing. So who better than to talk about networking than John? So John, I have a question for you.
First, thank you very much, Lynn and Eric. This is exciting to be able to talk to everybody today. Thank you.
Of course. You've built this amazing career. Do you enjoy networking?
Well, absolutely. I would say networking. I actually like the term basically professional socializing. That's pretty much how my career started. I actually, for everyone in the SD Media Pros, I actually grew up here in San Diego, and moved up to Hollywood very early. I moved up when I was 20 years old. So how I actually got into the movie industry was through the music industry as a recording engineer. And during that time, I was very lucky because I was a rock and roller who had got an engineering degree and started recording pretty big bands in LA. And at that time, the people who would come to the recording studios were also in the movie business, because the studio we worked at also did soundtrack mixing. So I learned very early on, this is in the good old days of Hollywood, this is the kind of the early 80s, that you had places like Delicatessens, Barney's Beanery, the Rainbow Bar and Grill, Sunset Boulevard during its, it was a fun time. And everyone hung out there, movie producers, directors, actors, music, everyone was hanging out. And at that time, internet didn't exist, cell phones didn't exist yet, and it was all networking. During that process, though, that's basically how we all got our work. We did at one point. I got an agent and a manager, but basically they were just there to make sure the deals were put together. It was all about seeing someone at a restaurant, hanging out, and I actually moved up to LA before I could go to legally get into a bar, so I'd kind of sneak in and just hang out with the people. And during that time, I realized it was really about who you knew. And through this experience, which I've always felt very strongly about, it's really about trust. A lot of people, not necessarily, I won't use the word young in age, but people who are in our industry here in San Diego is a good example, because I started in the movie and TV industry here doing commercials. At first, it's self-confidence, like, well, look at these guys, they've been around forever, they've been doing this, how am I going to get in? And I realized right away the most important thing that I learned, because I was fearless, and that's the thing, is I help people say when you're young, you're fearless, to go, what else can go wrong, I just hang out at the production company offices here in San Diego. There was a wonderful company called Foursquare Films, and at the time I was doing commercials. My dad was a commercial creative director, so when I started shooting commercials in junior high school. So I was already kind of in the business. So we would go to Foursquare Films in Chula Vista, John DeBello, Steve Peace, and the gang there, and that's where we had our film developed. So I just started hanging out and helping out when I could. And I didn't think that was anything weird about just hanging out at a production company. And through that, with John DeBello's, it was very exciting. He had, actually, they were just ramping up Attack of the Killer Tomatoes at the time. And they actually asked me to come out while they're shooting in the stadium and help out as a camera assistant. And so I got to work on the very first Attack of the Killer Tomatoes while those tomatoes were rolling down in the stadium. That was fun. And then at the same time, like most normal people, whatever that means, I actually worked also as a maintenance man in a hotel in Mission Valley, a famous hotel called, it was Plaza International at the time. And so I was the guy with the tool belt that would fix things in your room. And a movie came into town called The Stuntman. And that particular film, all the actors were there, Peter O'Toole, everybody. And I was a kid. And so I just started hanging out, and basically Joseph Silver, who was the producer of the film, and Richard Rush, the director, I became friends with there. And I said, can I come help out on the set? Didn't realize, I didn't know union, non-union, whatever. And so basically I learned right away by being there, just kind of hanging out. And again, so I showed up down at the time, it was the kids' pool. We called it the Clam back then before all the SEALs took over. And we ended up filming there. And so my very first real big movie job was basically schlepping gigantic dollies down that stairwell. So everyone in San Diego knows what that's about. And these aren't the little Fisher dollies you see now. These are things, I mean, huge. In any case, I go, oh, great. But so again, it was a thing where I kind of just inserted myself in, and then I realized it was about trust and relationships. Because again, when you're in this business, you know, everyone assumes you have a certain amount of experience, chops, technical skills. But when when you start moving into more organized productions, really what's more important is really a personal connection, because you're working so closely on set, and also in the office of a production too. Over my career, I split my career between being a director of photography, visual effects supervisor, and eventually over time I became a producer. And then, not liking being unemployed, I decided to start my own businesses. And during that time, I was very lucky in Los Angeles with a lot of investors. Started running studios, small studios that eventually turned into large studios. And one of the biggest studios that I actually was involved in purchasing was Zoetrope Images from Francis Ford Coppola. And during that time,
What was that like? Hey, Francis, can I buy your company?
Well, that's a story. It's actually a short film. Let's put it this way. I'll be really quick story. I'll be as quick as I can. I just finished shooting Ghostbusters, and you know I was very good friends with the producers, and I basically did 4 movies in a row that are all major blockbusters. A very lucky guy. But so in any case, we're at the wrap party. A guy named Bob Evans, infamous Bob Evans, from Paramount, Chinatown, the list goes on.
I know him well.
A wrap party. So we're at the wrap party, and very much like the movie Animal House, where they have the frat party and all the nerds come in and they pushed all the nerds in the library and all the cool people with the tuxedos go into the ballroom. Exact same thing. In any case, so we got shuffled, all the crew and techno people from the movie go into the library, all the kids and all the grown-ups are in the ballroom. And I started talking to this young guy for about 2 hours. Didn't realize he was one of the richest guys in the world, literally, or his father was. So just through that socializing, 4 weeks later, I got a call from an attorney saying, Sultana wants to meet you, wants to talk about your dreams. Because I was going off, you know, too many gins or whatever. I was just talking, going on. In any case, 2 months later, I had $12 million, which is equivalent to about $50 million now, to buy Francis Ford Coppola. I just finished doing One for the Heart, doing special effects on that. And he was a wonderful, beautiful guy, but he was going bankrupt. And he owned, at the time, it was Hollywood Center Studios, Zoetrope Images. And I knew he was going bankrupt because he was panicking and he was calling all the people I was working with looking for loans. So I had the money. So we ended up buying the studio. And for about 6 years, we ran Zoetrope Images. But that happened because I was at a party and I was talking. So I had no idea who he was. And at the same time, next thing I know, I've got the top MBA lawyer teaching me how to put together a business plan. And I staffed the studio with some of the top filmmakers from Lucasfilm that were on hiatus and from other studios. And we did a lot of films there. We did Smooth Criminal, Captain EO, did the Ridley Scott commercials there, the first Apple commercial with Ridley Scott, all done at the studio. So that was, again, another form of socializing and meeting people.
It,
Now that's go
Well, I
ahead.
was going to say, well, I mean, something I take away from that is, as somebody who had my career sort of shaped by being up in LA and being at a party, and at the Universal lot and meeting some producer who gave me advice that, at the time I didn't really put a lot of stock in, but a couple years later when life changed for me and I remembered that advice he gave me, and it forever kind of changed my career. But it's like you said, it's putting yourself in those positions, and I think that's the thing that a lot of younger people coming up in the industry don't really think that they need to do, because they're so involved in their phones or being online and things like that. But that one-on-one connection of being in there, putting yourself out there, and being in that room open to talk to somebody new. And yeah, sometimes it's a little scary to go up to somebody you don't know, but that's how good things start, and a lot of times. And it sounds like from what you're saying that, you know, that networking is what ultimately shaped your career and gave you the career that you had, by getting out there and putting yourself out there to meet those people.
Exactly. It's an interesting thing. During the process, here's another situation. Now, here in San Diego, I grew up here, and it was sort of the heyday. This was the late 70s. A lot of shows were going on here. I mean, it was a very busy city production-wise. We had actually a big sound stage, the Screen Gems stage downtown on, I think it was 6th Street. A lot of people don't know even it ever existed, but Screen Gems was one of the biggest commercial company. It was a full-blown Hollywood stage. Now it's lofts. San Diego was booming. The Film Commission was really filmmakers. It was based on professionals who were semi-retired. And again, the reality I always found is make work. Don't look for work, make work. And a lot of people, what's that mean? Make work. Especially,
like
though San Diego's, 130 miles from LA. Realistically, that should mean nothing for filmmakers there. But in LA, everyone makes work. That sounds so. Okay, let's say you're a commercial producer, director, cameraman, whatever, editor. Make work. Well, what that means is you get together, you bring together a team of people. This SD Media Pros is perfect. Even LA doesn't have anything as cohesive. There's a little pockets all over the place of different groups, but is where everyone just teams together based on what they're into. And making work is like a good example. One thing that I haven't seen here, which was absolutely day to day, because along with feature films has really been my business my whole life, but I've really paid the bills with commercials. Realistic, I make money with commercials, and I blow that money making feature films. So, but realistically, what I haven't seen here is people doing high-end spec commercials, which is mandatory in the professional world. And a lot of people, I can't afford to do a spec commercial. Well, you team together with and that may be music. The same goes with music videos. And San Diego has an edge over LA. First of all, it's a kind of a health-based community, and we've got three things going for us that are practiced in the media world. One is the beach lifestyle, the music lifestyle, and the off-road or country off-road lifestyle. So one of the things I want to promote is collaborating, team collaborating, and doing spec. Oh, and I know that doesn't mean blowing a lot of your own time, because everyone's pretty equipment up. Everyone's pretty well tooled up in this city. But that is how you get commercials in it. That's not just spec commercials, spec music videos, because the music video business is on the rise, and that's something I'm also very fond of, is music videos. And again, that was how I got my music videos. Starting off as a musician, recording engineer, I knew the music producers really well, and I was lucky. But that's not because because I hung out in the studios. I'd go to the bars afterwards and meet these producers and produce them. Well, I'm a cameraman. I can shoot music videos and this and that. I do all these things. At the end of the day, the music video industry is huge. The budgets aren't what they used to be, but they are huge. And as a filmmakers and media groups, it's probably the best way to learn your chops, because we all have our own philosophy. My philosophy is when you're making commercials, short films, music videos. Make them motion pictures. Try to limit the amount of dialogue and really try to tell the story with a camera and an editing and music. Every one of us has the innate ability to tell a story, create a good shot, but what holds back, including myself, is the self-confidence in what you feel inside. So you can break out of that box of safe and get out of that safe box. And that's self-confidence. It has nothing to do with hours behind a camera or behind the editing system. It's self-confidence and avoiding that anxiety. Good luck. But, basically learning to breathe through this stuff, because at the end of the day, you're the only one freaking out. No one else around you is.
Well, yeah, well, that actually kind of leads into the next question. And before I get to that, I wanted to say, yeah, as somebody who started out, my first directing job that I got, a paid gig directing, was commercials, and I got that because I did a spec commercial. And so, yeah, it does pay off if you do it, but you got to make sure you do it well.
They got to be 100% professional.
Yeah, because the ad agencies will spot real quick, and our spot was not the most polished spot, but it was inventive and kind of fun, and so I think that's what got us the gig. But to get back to what you were just saying, yeah, I mean, what advice do you have for people that are, a little bit more nervous? Because let's face it, most of the people in our industry, and Lynn, you can attest to this probably too, you hang out with a lot of people, a lot of us are introverts who don't do well getting out, socializing, and talking to new people. So to those people, what advice do you have for them to sort of get over that, and just get out there and try to meet someone new, come out of your shell?
Well, it's an interesting point, because I don't know, maybe technically I might be a bit of an extrovert. I'm really both, be serious about it. I love to, I have a lot of practice. Practice makes perfect in all skill sets. And I must tell you, I have anxiety attacks even going to the SD Media Pro events. I get butterflies. I don't know why. I just do. But I get over it really quickly. And somehow I go into this conversion. But here's a good example. Occasionally, when I'm at the SD Media Pros or I'm at an event, a party, I don't choose the social butterfly rolling around to hang and talk to. I look for someone who's kind of nervous, and you can see their head. They want to say something, but they don't want it. For some reason, I gravitate to those people. And immediately find those people, the ones that really are holding in a lot. And again, that's part of real filmmaking. Some of the greatest storytelling filmmakers are technically introverts. And what they do, they flip a switch, just like calling action. And again, it's a performance psychology. That's you're self-taught, and some people learn from greater directors. They learn the trick. So with young people, whoever, it doesn't matter what age. If you're shy and you go, I don't know, I'm not even sure I can form the sentences to really pull a conversation together. I personally love that, because those are the people who are really, their minds are going a mile a minute in their heads. And I found, especially in the work in post-production, lighting, especially gaffers, there's two kinds of gaffers, the quiet gaffers and the other gaffers will let you know what they had for breakfast every day. I mean, the chatty Cathys and the really introverts. But what I found is the ones that are quiet, and this quiet just means they're listeners. Again, another magic trick, listening. And that is something that will make points, serious points, to anyone who's always looking up. Now, the reason I joined this SD Media Pros, because I've spent years between all over the world making movies, and I've been growing up here. I figured it's now time, because I never really belonged to a lot of associations or groups, and basically I had a lot of time to do that and commit. I go there basically to meet people, and knowing people, and hopefully finding people where if I have a project, it's not the scary, and it is scary looking for crew. It really is, because it's not like the old days where we had months to pre-plan and say, okay, we have our whole team. Most of my teams are up in LA, they're in London, and up in Vancouver. That's where my teams are. Almost half of my work still comes from Vancouver. It comes from Canada. And, we don't want to talk too much about, cross-border filmmaking, but, I spent 18 years making movies and TV shows in Vancouver, and that's where most of my work comes out, because that's where I had my biggest network. My other biggest network was out of Asia and London. So I go to SD Media Pros basically, and I'm not, I hate to use the term headhunting, but in a friendly way, looking for people who are like-minded. Now, I'm kind of lucky because I've worked as a gaffer, I've done all these jobs very well and been at it a long time. So I'm not looking for someone who's a world-class, award-winning gaffer, camera operator. I know they're all capable. I can certainly help them because if I'm directing, for instance, I can work with them on composition and show them some tricks and how to do a jib shot perfectly and get off that gimbal and use a jib instead for work in the studio and all that kind of stuff. So I'm not really trying to judge who's the best. I'm looking for someone who's fun to work with, who is, excited, and to a certain degree doesn't know their limitations, so they're not restricted. They're just kind of going for it. Here's another thing too. For the people who are aiming to get into the bigger productions long term, there's a lot of studios here in San Diego that are really not part of the social circle. There are outpost production groups that are really out of LA, and they're really here they're like fronts that do big commercial work. And believe it or not, there's a lot of veteran filmmakers who live in San Diego counties who live here but work in LA.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I go back to talk to students occasionally at my alma mater at SDSU, to the film school there, and I'm always kind of trying to remind kids, it's like when I was there years ago, we all wanted to be Steven Spielberg and come out and, basically your choices were to either work in commercials, work in Hollywood, be it TV or film, or go into corporate-y kind of stuff. And now the market for production, it's like, you don't have to go to Hollywood to be successful. There are all these other areas, where you can thrive as a filmmaker, be it social media, be it, ads, commercials for the web or for broadcast, or, still Hollywood and, that kind of stuff, or the corporate stuff, there's the area, the net is so much wider for what students can do now. It's really pretty amazing, and yeah, groups like Media Pros really help with that, and so it's beneficial to be a part of it. But one thing you said before that I kind of wanted to chime in on and get Lynn's opinion, because she runs a studio, Rev Studios. But you talked about, being a good crew member and being etiquette on set and things like that. And that's one thing that I always try to tell new people. It's like, the industry is large. There's a lot of us that work in it, but we all talk, especially those of us who've been around for a while. We all tend to sort of know each other and run in the same circles. And if you're coming up and your attitude is that you have all the answers and you have it all figured out and your way is the best way, then you might not be getting hired too often.
Yeah.
Don't be a jerk on set. I mean, Lynn, you have a lot of production companies come into your studio. I'm sure you see all kinds of stuff and have seen that maybe firsthand.
Yeah, I think I've been pretty lucky. Most of the crews that come in here, they're professional. They all work really well together. I think it's impressive. It's like watching a Formula One team come together. It's just seamless and not a lot of chatter. Everything's, when things go well, there's not a lot of communication. But yeah, there are the the interesting characters that come along from time to time, and you're like, "Whew, I'm glad that one's done." And I don't think I would want to work on that set in the future. But yeah, I think the other thing I would say is consistency, right? So, if you are nervous to go to a San Diego Media Pros event because you're new to the industry, or even, just looking for additional work or whatever, I don't think you can just show up to one event and expect like rainbows and butterflies to come out of it. You kind of have to go consistently so you see the same people over and over. My background was not in production at all. My background was marketing, and found this amazing space and saw that video production was kind of the way things were leaning for marketing. And so I thought, wow, I really need to learn about the industry and get involved and meet the people who are doing the work. But only now, and it's been a few years, do I feel comfortable showing up to an event knowing like I'm going to see people that I recognize and we're going to have a great conversation and talk about, what's coming for San Diego. And that's exciting, but you can't expect it's going to happen in one meeting.
No.
Yeah.
Well, as you put it, though, the atmosphere, I mean, your studio is, when you go in a studio like Rev Studios, the first thing it does is like going into, you behave yourself in a happy way because it's very high professional aesthetically. This is something a lot of people don't realize. Filmmaking, media making is an aesthetic art and craft, and even how you build your set, how you set up your equipment. It sounds strange, how organized your carts are, how well your trucks are parked. It is all part of the craft and pride in the craft. And so that is it sounds funny, but when everyone's very organized, what it does do is it actually puts the gears together, and so the clutch isn't going on and off if you're in the real performance. They're locked in, slowing things down into a gear frame as opposed to all over the place. Another thing too is having a common goal. Now, one thing they did, a lot of people aware, I was involved with the La Jolla Fashion Film Festival for about 14 years. And realistically, it was the most organized film event in San Diego in its history. And a lot of people, I talked to people at SDME Pros, well, did you ever go to the La Jolla Fashion Film Festival? I never heard of it. We had the best filmmakers in the world there. Karl Lagerfeld would come there every other year. It was a massive event with famous filmmakers. Entertainment Tonight was there, TMC, all the people were there. And in that process, not a lot of San Diego filmmakers fell into it for some reason. There were a few that I got to know. A lot of the Latin industry fashion designers here, who most people don't even know existed, they got involved and they did some really cool films. These are fashion films. But there was a common goal worldwide, and having this year of event to build, not necessarily a quick film, short film. I'm a pro doing short films, but primarily for a purpose. A short film should do one of two things: represent a situation, call it a social situation or whatever, but primarily it should be leading to a short film going to be a feature film you want to make, a documentary you want to go bigger with, or to a certain degree, again, I'm very pro music video, because one thing San Diego has I think a bigger edge in LA is you got incredible musicians here, all genres. I'm personally a rocker myself, but really, really good musicians. But and I don't want to put any pressure, but I think having an internal film festival, SD Media Pro, with a pseudo theme that is aimed at commercialization, not just a story about you're a little kid, this happened, all very great, but actually a way to push yourself forward. Because one thing this is what happened, and this is like with Tyler Perry, who came out of nowhere, literally. All the Blumhouse guys, all these guys came out of nowhere because they were doing short films. District 9, for instance. When I was living in Vancouver, who I used to shoot a lot of commercials for was, the guys that did District 9. They became famous because they started doing viral UFO videos that were so good, it actually scared you to go, oh my God, this is real. And so he actually was doing short films that led to basically one of the biggest production companies, Thunderbird Films. They produced Dune. They're big now, huge. District 9, the list goes on. The reason I'm saying this is because there's another philosophy, which is more, I call it more metaphysical, call it what you like, is you manifest things by being involved with things. If you're sitting there waiting, that's what you're going to do. If you're out there doing something, you don't want to sound corny, it's a law of attractions. Things come together. And it really is people coming together, and maybe a visitor watching the set who goes, oh, I'd love you to do some commercials for me one day or whatever. The idea is this process of getting the teams together. It's not really competition here in San Diego. What's competition is a psychological effect. You choose somebody based in the agency world. Once they know you're capable of producing a good commercial, it is not at all about you against three other companies. That's the scary part and the good part. They have you come on because you've got a style, a technique, and you're flexible enough to handle their 14 revisions.
Well,
um,
yeah, having those kind of skills is definitely, I mean, people skills are such a key part of this job. I mean, learning how to deal with, I've had to deal with agencies, and that's a whole meeting and podcast unto itself of just trying to, but yeah, having that interaction and knowing how to talk to people and how to work with people is key. And yeah, the only way you really learn to do that is by doing it, making mistakes, learning from those mistakes, and then kind of continuing on. Yeah, it's a vital part of it. And one thing I wanted to kind of touch on is, it's one thing to go meet somebody somewhere and to meet them for the first time, and like Lynn kind of said, you got to go multiple times, but like following up is an important part of it. Making sure that you don't just get someone's card and then say, okay, I'll email you, and then never email them, or just email them
exactly.
one time. You've got to kind of like be there again at that next meeting so they can see you, and hey, there you are again, how's it going, you catch up. And what advice do you have, John, for for that follow-up when it's if somebody were to meet you at a future Media Pros event, and get your information, what do you suggest to them on following up? What's the best way to do that?
Actually an excellent question and comment, because I'm a, being I'm a bit, I push people a bit. I'm not a taskmaster, so anyone ever going to work with me, I'm not a hard ass boss. I consider everybody in charge of themselves, and my job is to steer them in the right direction. But getting back to that, very common. Every time I go to a Media Pro meeting, I will, generally speaking, meet someone new, and then at the same time, I'll see the same people I meet. Generally speaking, I will break the ice first. Sounds weird. And they'll send me a card. They'll give me a card, or they'll do a phone tap thing or whatever. Generally speaking, and again, I don't want to
sound... Phone tap has now become the new business card. I actually met somebody who I said, do you have a card? And I handed them my card, and I said, oh, do you have one? And he goes, here, just tap this card. And that's how I got his information. And I'm like, that's crazy.
Yeah, and it's actually quite cool. I kind of do that myself, sort of agree, because I'm printing cards. I mean, I'm cool. I love cards. But back to the reason is that some people will call me. Basically, I seem to attract a lot of people in the lighting and in the craft, camera, and not as many editors, Eric, because I don't know why, but I do edit myself. Well, no, don't be. I mean, keep in mind, I don't edit everything I do. Generally speaking, it's really a crossover. Some of the simple stuff I do like you do because you can do it, and I consider myself pretty good at it. But on the bigger projects, I like having a team like anyone else. And the difference, a good example, I directed a comedy cooking show up in Vancouver. It's a satirical network, and it's actually premiering this Saturday up on television and the networks in Canada. And the actors, I was the director of the show and the director of photography. 13 episodes, 10 hours a day for 3 weeks. A lot of work. Silly show, very funny. The actor was run on sentence. And as an editor, and basically when I went through all the dailies, I calculated it was going to take me 4.5 months to edit this piece. 4.5 months, 8 hours a day to figure out, and I was scratching my head, how am I going to jump cut the heck out of this show and still make it fun? I'm a bit of a conventional editor. I do add flash. I'm really into motion graphics, but I'm not TikTok. That's not my thing. I'm not disrespecting it. I don't have chops for that stuff. So I ended up finding an editor who's full-blown TikTok genius, and I ended up giving away a fairly juicy job financially, but I said, I can't. I'm not, this guy proved to me he can do that. And so I had to let go because he could do it better than I could. And that's the funny thing is, not all of us we have our great things we're good at, and sometimes we aren't, and it's better to delegate it.
Oh yeah, I found that. I mean, listen, I think that I'm a fairly decent editor. I've been doing it for a long time, and built a business and own a home off of it. But I will take on, there are projects that will come through the door here at my company, and I'll be like, I'm not the best editor for that. I know where my strengths lie, and that project is not where they are. So, but I know someone who, through networking and through meeting people, I know who's the perfect person for that job, and I'm going to bring them on for that. And to me, like, that's such a key part of, if you're a producer, putting your producer hat on. I mean, many of us in San Diego wear multiple hats at any time of the day. Producer, editor, shooter, director, whatever. But being able to identify, it's a humble thing. You have to let go of pride sometimes and think, well, yeah, I can do that. No. You might not be able to really do that to the best. And if the client's not happy, they're not going to be your client for much longer. So identifying that and saying, I need this guy to make this project sing to get me more work because they're the talented. That's a huge part of the job.
It is, and it sometimes it requires a sacrifice. It's short term. Financially is usually the sacrifice if you can get past the emotion. But those decisions have to be made fairly quickly because a lot of people will continue on a train wreck where all they had to do is hand it off. And it is tricky, especially today.
Well, one thing that I think we should totally talk, and Lynn, I'm sure you probably have something to give on this too. It's like, we all started out somewhere, we all made mistakes, and it would be great if we could go back and give ourselves advice, and I mean, Lynn, when you started out, is there a piece of advice that somebody gave to you or wish you could have gotten that would have helped you out? And
I don't know why, but when I was in college, I was just hungry. Like I would do anything. I would lick envelopes if I had to just be around like the area. So that's something I would tell somebody else is just what if this is what you want to do, just do whatever it takes to get in front of it. For me, I think I would have done a better job. I applaud John at just keeping in touch with people. I sometimes just get so wrapped up in what I'm doing that I forget to like touch base with people, have touchstones, and I do have those, but probably not at the level I should.
Yeah. I mean, John, what advice would you give to your younger self? If you could go back and, I mean, you've had a pretty good career, so whatever advice you did a whole lot of the right things, but if there was something that you could go back and tell yourself, what, focus more on this, or make sure you do this a little bit better or different, what would that be if you can think of anything?
Buy stock in Apple. Actually, the biggest thing, I'd say the biggest thing is really just realize that as long as you're polite, it doesn't matter if you're goofy or strange or a bit weird. I kind of like that. I like eccentricity. It's just me, but I also know that some people are, they have a lot of fancy words for what we us filmmakers are. They call it the spectrum. Well, I tell you, whatever spectrum I'm on is blinding, I guess, because when I was a kid, I ticked all the boxes. But I knew personally, I just had different things to think about. So I think a lot of people have to look really at themselves and say, don't be nervous. If you happen to be strange and you happen to tell bad jokes, it's okay because I can laugh at a bad joke. As a matter of fact, I can turn that around. You asked the question about calling people. I regularly make 3 or 4 calls a day reaching out to people. And I have people all the time. I'm actually, after this, I have a guy who does these shows, does these really great reality shows. It's called The Killer Highway. These are these great shows of one of the top reality director producers. And he's calling me up. He's from Canada. And he's going, well, they're not really excited. No one wants these anymore. I want to move into science and technology documentary. So we're going to have a talk. He reached out to me.
Yeah.
and we reach back and forth. And I do this every day.
Yeah, John, I was curious, like, do you have something like an hour that you carve out of your day where you're reaching out to people, or how do you force yourself to do
I
that
don't force
outreach?
myself. I have two times. I have coffee time, which is our right now. I eat a late brunch only, and during coffee, I make my business the more important calls. I know what they're all important, but calls that are levels of interactivity, mission critical stuff. And usually in the afternoon, before I settle in, I will make the social calls where I can laugh and have fun and stuff like that. I make it almost every day. Not, s- I usually keep Sunday. It's sort of, I like to have some space, and Saturdays, I like to have weekends like normal people, I guess, but every day almost.
And is it phone calls, or do you also do text messages or emails or
No, the text messages are I'm just doing that psychology. I'm a part-time psychologist to people dealing with the world right now, so I do a lot of comedy texting and memes. But no, I actually I text to say, "Hey, how's it going?" I usually what I do, I won't call it randomly, because I know certain people. I'm not going to call some like Eric here, and I know you're probably editing at sometime at 2 in the afternoon or whatever. I'm like, oh, yeah, hi, how's it going? What's new? I don't know what's new. I don't know what's new. No, but I just call people. But if it's certain people I know they're on the go, very busy, and I want to make it a point. Heads up, are you available in a half hour? That's it. Heads up, are you available in a half hour? And I don't give them much time. Got some going. You got 15 minutes. Quick talk, and generally speaking, so it's a regular thing for me, and not all of it is targeted at getting a job. A lot of it has to do with the fact that I'm a flower in a meadow that's wondering what happened to all the birds that were used to fly around in it. And so I'm still, where are all my friends? Where's everybody? So, if it sounds weird,
Well,
but that's the way it is.
I'll tell you that if you called me just like out of the blue at 2 o'clock, I would definitely answer because there are plenty of days where I'm up in my edit loft right now and where I'm sitting there editing. There are days like where I'm in the groove and I don't want to talk and I'll just let it go to voicemail. And there's other days where it's like, man, this project is killing me. Oh, phone call. Hello. It's like
Yeah. Well,
I'm looking for
that's
any
another
kind
thing.
of distraction.
Exactly, and the distraction is, and I can tell you in editing, people call it ADD or whatever, all these words. I multitask. I'll be in my I'd be editing. I can only edit for about. Sometimes I'll go in the tunnel for hours on end, but what I'll do is I'll get up and I'll walk around, and then I'll go in the recording studio, play some guitar for about 40 minutes, 30 minutes, and I go back and forth from the recording studio to the editing room, out to
Yep.
the back patio to talk, and I'm back and forth, back and forth. And with editing, I must tell you, I'm a situation I have, which I am actually quitting, but I'm a smoker. I smoke cigarettes from time to time. Um, Quit, don't do it. I actually have to quit next year due to surgery I'm having. But when I'm doing that, I'm in the backyard, and I'm just sitting there during an edit. And as you well know, there's three things you're figuring out in editing. One of it is the creative process. Like, Jesus, I got to bring this down. I got to bring it down, and I don't have a cutaway. All this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Or what the heck's happening? This render every time it's like, what this? Is it the machine? And is there something wrong? Is my video card going out? What is it a corrupt file? I mean, all that. And so you sit there and you go through the checklist, and I'll be in the backyard,
Yeah.
and Roberta will come and say, "We'll start talking," and I won't even hear her talking because I'm in my head going, "Is this a corrupt file? Am I stacked two layers in After Effects and one of them layers?" And all this stuff goes on.
Yeah.
These things require concentration, but also to break the distraction, because a lot of time, let's say Erica, you and I are talking about something, and I'll say, "Oh shit, now I remember." Oh, excuse that, but because while we're talking, it just came to me. It wasn't a technical problem. I forgot to do this, and that's why it's not working.
Well, yeah.
And then I'll.
It's for me, like you talked about two different things, and we don't need to get off on editing, but it is an interesting thing just because, yeah, getting out from things is often the best way when I get stuck creatively. And for me, I don't have a recording studio, but these video games back here become part of what I do. So I will walk from my desk over here back to there and spend a good 20-30 minutes. And that's how I sold it to my wife when I bought those, by the way. And so I'm not lying. But yeah, I'll play those and just letting your mind, or I'll take a walk. My office is downtown, and walking around downtown, there's all kinds of things. You just have to let your mind kind of go and your subconscious work on stuff. And then when you do that, often that's when the good stuff comes out.
Absolutely,
but
it's inspiration. So I think I think in the big picture, because I'm being centric about this SD Media Pro, because that is it's in itself is a it is a culture. It is by de facto it's a unified group. Within the unification of the group, there's different layers. Because one of the big blends here is between the hardcore, I'm a cinematographer, an editor, I'm a gaffer, I'm this or that, or all the different things. And like with you and Lynn, you're in the middle of, I'm the place where you make it all happen. There is the magic, because it's what's in front of the camera that counts. And now we're in a time where it really doesn't matter what cameras you use anymore, but it's really just about having talented, fun people around, and that's networking. And again, if you're a director, producer director doing commercials, even the blending of what you mentioned, corporate. I use the term outreach because I also do outreach videos.
John, I'm very curious. Who's the most famous person in your phone?
Mel Gibson.
Nice. Would he take your call?
Oh yeah, well, actually Johnny Depp is a friend of mine too. We're
call him now. Call him right now. No,
yeah, they actually it's the other way around. Well, not recently, but fairly recently. There's a film I'm developing called Sunburst Finish. It's an IMAX film, and I want to bring our whole SD Media Pro to be behind it. This is something we're going to do in the future. I'll just announce.
With Johnny Depp?
Johnny Depp.
We're in.
Well, it's also John Voight, Johnny Depp are in it. I've got a lot of. It's an amazing show, but my whole thing to bring it together here is I want to announce this and have an official time for it. Not just a thing where it's with the mentor talk. I really want to talk business, almost like a boardroom meeting at SD Media Pro. It may sound strange, literally a board meeting style, because the Young, Fast, and Scientific I'm working with YouTube on, and it's basically going to be an IMAX content creators showcase, but it's celebrating young people in science, art, and technology. Music-driven film, and it requires multiple filmmakers, all working in large format. YouTube will be co-marketing it, and it will be streamed instead of just running a file in the IMAX theater. It will be streamed live in the IMAX theaters with podcasters in each region opening up the shows. So this is a whole new system that's AMC's will be working on it with us too. So this is the whole world is changing, and San Diego could easily take a serious lead in it. The best filmmaking in the world is now television. Series television. Feature films are beautiful. They're absolute works of art. Their stories are nowhere to be compared. You can't even put them in the same division of quality storytelling as a good TV series. Shows like Jack Ryan, Lethal Weapon, the new series, these are shows that are genius writing, genius cinematography, locations. These are far superior than feature films.
Yeah.
Feature films are...
It's been kind of moving that way for a while now, where yeah, the television, it used to be the opposite, where, the Hollywood stuff was the elite stuff and television was sort of, the redheaded stepchild. But then at some point that has now switched where, streaming and TV and these, where storytellers can, take the time, over 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 episodes to tell a story as opposed to trying to cram it in 2 hours. And people are watching it and they enjoy that, as opposed to going out to the theater, which is sad in my opinion that theater going to become more event. It's like it's a big spectacle thing.
It is, and it is an event, and I think it's okay to allow it to be that. The films I'm going to be doing for the theater are events, but I can tell you, you watch a show like as a cinematographer and editor and a gaffer and all the things I do. When I watch Jack Ryan, I get goosebumps. I go, that is the best camera move I've ever seen, and I'm already talking to the screen. Don't you know? It is that. So when people say,
You're yelling at the screen or what?
yeah, like don't do that. You know, look behind you. And again, the reason I'm saying this is a lot of people say, well, how do you learn? Like film school. And I know I get a lot of, I pseudo went to film school. But to a lot of people that are handy people, I say, man, film school, I'll tell you what you do is you watch TV shows and movies, study them. If you understand cinematography, just watch these shows. And instead of spending 75 G's at a film school, buy yourself a workstation, a camera, and a lighting kit, and then maybe hire a professional editor to do your first short, a DP. You're still going to come under budget if you're doing shorts, and you'll have people to mentor you. I mean, if some guy says, "Well, I'll hire you, for 2 days to show me how to shoot," and I won't charge them full union rate, but they want to get their chops together as a director. Now that I'll show them some of the tricks. That's what I used to do when I was a little younger, and I had the opportunity. I'd literally take a hit on my own budget to hire a top DP so I can learn from that person, or bring in an editor I really had no business affording, could not afford. But I just say, I'm going to kind of take a hit on this one so I can bring this person in, and then I get to know this super editor. It kind of wrap things regarding the networking. That's why I'm saying kind of collaborative events, having a target where everyone is really working together, because everyone seems to think we're all, there might be times where cinematographers kind of there's certain competition in that world, but realistically, that's only because no one has really pushed themselves into a motif, like this cinematographer is known for this kind of work, this editor is known for that work, the list goes on, the art direction. Another area San Diego needs a lot of help on is art direction and location management. Not the skill of that, but picking.
Yeah, we don't have. There aren't that many folks that are really specialized in that here. There are some out there. There definitely are some out there, but
there are tricks. There are tricks to make a set look good. Just because your mom has a house you can use for free, unless it looks really good and the couch isn't against the back wall,
yeah.
And you can bring the house to dark and bring it up with lights. All these things are really important. Just because you can get something for free or cheap, that is probably the first sign that you're running into trouble, unless you're lucky. And this is where networking coming in. If you're networking and you start to hang out and you belong to the Vintage Craftsman Homeowners Association, and you know all the people that own these beautiful homes in North Park and these beautiful Craftsman wooden homes, and you're part of that network, and then when it's time to do your commercial, the friend you met over in the Bankers Hill, that beautiful house, I need to do a commercial. Can you help me out? I only have this amount of money. Oh, sure. And now you got the set.
Yep.
Yep.
I can't think of a better place to end this, because we are at time. But yeah, that's it. It's all about who you know. I mean, it's an old saying about Hollywood, but it is totally true. It is about who you know and making those connections. And I mean, Lynn, do you have any thoughts on everything that we just heard before we wrap it up?
No, well, one thing, someone recently told me, which I think is a good trick, is when you're going into these events and you don't know anyone, kind of flipping the script and thinking about how I can help the people that I meet instead of how I can help myself. And that kind of makes me feel a little less nervous about, inserting myself into a conversation. It's more about now I'm trying to figure out what your goals are so I can try to help you. Just a little.
Well,
little
again,
trick.
and I must tell you and this is, I think this is all an issue in the real world, because right now the social media has created this. It's basically a bipolar reality between what I call a artificial face of the digital representation that sometimes has you put more effort into than your personal representation. And a lot of times people feel, again, because what happens in the social media world, everything is text, text, text. Everything's already a linear edit. Everything you do is linear-ish, where a real conversation is absolutely nonlinear. And humans are absolutely nonlinear. And I must tell you, I can go on about the philosophy of how it's screwed the brains of so many people who depend on social media as their method of communication, other than business-wise and what we do for media. That interaction, someone comes to me and interrupts me in a conversation, especially a social, it's not like a meeting conversation, it's mission critical, then you have to be very polite. If I see three people, I do it with media pros, I basically wait for an edit point to jump in. And I say, and they go, what are you talking about? I don't know, I just want to say hi. And he goes, well, we're talking about, and I laugh at it and says, well, let's talk about this. And basically, I guess at a certain point in time, if they say, bugger off, kid, we don't want to talk to you, then whatever, you just live with it. And you'll laugh. But
yeah,
generally speaking, when you're in these social environments like SD Media Pros, unless it's someone giving directions on how to get home or something, the conversations aren't so precious. I mean, they are precious, but you can steer them and go off in another direction. Yep. And that, honestly, it's more fun. Honestly, you're contributing to social interaction by actually breaking up the stream. But here's the art. Listen, listen, listen. Try not to interrupt in wording, and always think positively. If someone happens to say something, this is very important for all you super technos. If someone's going off saying, that the budget on that movie was $4 million. No, it wasn't. It was 3.5. Don't correct people when they're throwing numbers out, or unless it's directions getting home. Like I say, it's mission critical. Be a contrarian. When you're at a meeting, you're talking to people. If someone's going off talking about the biggest fish in the world, let them go off and talk about the 2,000-pound marlin they caught, whatever.
It's all about the stories. So
yeah.
All right. Well, John, thank you so much for spending time with us today and
I appreciate
sharing your
it.
wisdom and your insight. We totally appreciate it. Yeah, it was great. I think this has been phenomenal. So, I mean, Lynn, do you have any closing comments?
No. Great job. Thank you.
Right.
Well, I look forward to seeing everybody at the next SD event. I don't know when this comes out, but I'm always look forward to it.
Well, we'll definitely put some comments or some notes in when the next Media Pros event is coming up. But yeah, and if you enjoyed today's conversation, be sure to subscribe and share this with as many filmmaking friends, production people that you know. Of course, we'd love to see everybody out at the next San Diego Media Pros mixer and event or whatever they've got going on. And you can put some of these networking skills, at work and test them out. And be sure if you see any of the three of us at them, be sure to come up and let us know that you watched this and you enjoyed it. If you hated it, just keep on walking. Just walk on by. I don't want to hear about it. But
All right.
For those of you who loved it, let us know. And again, John, huge thank you for spending your time with us. And we will see you on the next Key Light Series podcast.